Welcome to episode 565 of the show. Today, we're going to go into some details on the methods of lead generation, or another word for customer creation, that we've coined over here on the podcast. So remember, if you Google lead generation or you check your business books, you're not going to find customer creation as the meaning of the term. But for the podcast, I'm looking at working and simple, ordinary, everyday definitions. So that's the reason why I'm substituting lead generation for customer creation. Now, the methods of lead generation that we referred to in the previous podcast, I classify them as new school versus old school. And if you're still not convinced about why we should define lead generation as customer creation, then look at episode 564. That's the one that came prior to this, and you're going to see the rationale for why I am making that substitution. So every time I talk about lead generation or customer creation, I'm talking about the same thing. But remember, if you do check business sources online, you check YouTube or you check your business books, you will find that they don't quite mean the same thing. Now, what's the difference between new school methods and old school methods of creating customers or of lead generation? They are different on a number of fronts. Well, first of all, there's the online offline thing that I mentioned in the past episode. You find that the newer methods are almost exclusively online based, and then the offline methods are or rather, the old school methods are mostly offline based. All those face to face, handshake, meeting, one on one ways of drumming up business. Apart from that, there's also a difference in the level of interpersonal skill that is required. You can have absolute twats do new school or online kinds of lead generation because it doesn't require any form of interpersonal skill whatsoever. That's the reason why our inboxes, whether it's our DMs in Instagram or our email boxes, are full of all kinds of crap. And that's because all you have to do to be successful at this kind of way of generating leads is you have to be patient enough to sit behind the keyboard and keep banging out scripts day after day after day. Look for the one that works the most and then optimize, and then just keep blanketing people and sending out all kinds of messages. For the old school offline methods, on the other hand, you can't be a jerk, because if you're a jerk and you're trying to convince somebody to hire you as a wedding photographer, that is not going to work. If you sell cement, but you're an absolute PRICK and you're a pain in the neck and difficult to deal with, cement is more or less a commodity. Yeah, let's put it that way. If someone is tired of your hassles, you always show up late, you're unprofessional, stuff like that, they might as well just go to the builder's market and select another person to buy cement from if you are really poor on your interpersonal skills. So the offline methods, the old school methods, they really require a high degree of interpersonal skills. So they require you to be sharp, know how to present yourself, know how to handle a conversation, know how to build relationships, those sorts of things. And then, of course, the possibility of personal rejection that runs with them is different. If you're doing new school, online based kind of things, then you never feel personally rejected. Because if you send out a million emails and nobody responds, you don't feel rejected. You just wake up the next day and you send another 1 million emails. And that's just what they do, because you never feel rejected because nobody's telling you no to your face. But for the old school methods, offline methods, when someone tells you no face to face, it's hard not to take it personal, especially in the beginning when you're starting out your business. So if you are one of those artist types, a wedding photographer, wedding planner, a no always seems personal. But if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, I hope that by now you've been convinced that when people say no to you, it's not you they are rejecting personally, but rather it's your value proposition, it's the business offering that the people are saying no to, so you don't have to take that personal. And if this is your first time listening to the podcast and you want some resources on that, after you're done listening to this episode, you have to scroll down to older episodes. This was long before I started giving episodes, numbering the episodes. So all you have to be doing is looking for personal rejection or rejection So yeah, personal rejection or rejection in the titles, and you'll get some more details about how to handle rejection when you're face to face with a customer. So those are some of the key differences between new school versus old school. It's an online versus offline thing. The offline methods require interpersonal skills, so you have to be sharp on that. It doesn't mean you have to change your personality, but we're going to talk about some of that, more of that in detail. So you don't have to become, if you're extroverted, you don't have to become introverted, and if you consider yourself an introvert, you don't have to become extroverted. But we'll get into some more of that in more details in the future. Although, if you're looking for stuff I've done in the past on this, then scroll down to former episodes, and most likely you're looking for anything that has to do with personality in the title, extroversion, extrovert, introvert, introversion. Just use the search function in your podcast and your podcast player, and you'll be able to find the older episodes where I went into some detail about that. But have no fear, you don't have to change your personality. Let's see what else. So those are the major differences in old school versus new school. Now, before we go into detail on old school versus new school, some of you might be keen to know what my recommendation is. If you're an old listener to the podcast, then you know that I don't have any personal recommendation for you, because when it comes to sales, personal selling, business development, personal development, whatever you like to call it, it is always contextual. It depends on the context that we're in. So it depends on the business and it depends on the industry. It depends, is this a product or are we talking about a service? It depends on the price point that we're dealing with. Are we dealing with something extremely cheap, like you're supplying toilet paper to hotels, or are we dealing with something extremely expensive, like maybe you sell cars because you have a stand in Asokoro, or if you're in Lagos, you have a stand in Ojodu Berger or something, or maybe something even much more expensive, like generators for office complexes or maybe airplanes or whatever. And then it also depends: are you in a simple or a complex sale scenario? I'm not going to go into detail on that. But if you're curious, then look for older episodes. Excuse me. Look for older episodes that have simple sales scenario in the title, simple sales or complex sales, and you get some more details about that. But simple sale versus complex sale, it depends on whether you're dealing with commodities, much more expensive items or not, or let's see what else. The level of skill involved. Basically, let's just say there's a difference between selling a goosey in the market, selling akara on the roadside, or trying to sell someone insurance services. So obviously, I'm sure you can see that one scenario is more simple and the other is much more complex. So these are the things that go into determining whether you're going to use new school tactics or old school tactics. Because obviously, if you sell akara by the roadside, then all of this online stuff does not apply. So I have no personal recommendation. It's going to depend on the context that you're in. Now, let's delve straight into what the new school or online methods are. New school or online methods, if you do a rough search over YouTube or Google or whatever it is, I'm sure even if you check your business books. Okay, I don't know if business books in school today deal with these sorts of things, but I suspect that they should. Yeah, they should. If you go to Benue State University, you probably don't have a chapter on this in your business books if you're studying an MBA, but I'm sure you're prof. Okay, no, not MBA, master's in, no, not, what's that one called? Business. There's some business degree anyway in Benue State University. So I doubt you have this in your books. But if you go to the more established universities like Obafemi Awolowo University, that's my alma mater, or Unilag or ABU Zaria or stuff like that, I'm sure that your business book have these headings right there. So where was I? Okay, so new school, SEO. That's one of the methods of lead generation or creating customers in a new school. So SEO is all about making using keywords and backlinks to websites to make sure that people find you easily online. The idea is that if people find you easily online, then the possibility of doing business with them increases. So that's the idea. SEO, search engine optimization. Make sure you show up real nice in search engines, whether it's Google or Bing or whatever, and you should get more customers. Then there's email marketing, which is using email to find people to talk to initiate the conversations, and to let them know of what your offering is. So the premise here being that if you handle this whole process real nice and real smooth, then you're going to end up doing business with someone. Those of you who have studied abroad, who you ran your master's programs abroad, you're going to be familiar with email marketing already because you have been the recipient of these sorts of processes. Because you were here in Nigeria, you ran your Google whatever, you saw a school in Calgary or a school in London or whatever, and then you send them an email, and next thing you know, somebody from the admission office emails you back. They want to know about you, what course you're interested in. They email you a brochure. They email you information about the campus, information about the cost of living in the UK or Canada or whatever, and that whole thing happens through email. That is email marketing done right, and that's one thing I'm going to give these foreign schools kudos to. They handle the email aspect quite well, so that's some good bit of email marketing done there. The reason why I use that example is because there's lots of bad email marketing that we receive. Just after you're done listening to this recording, take your phone, open your email app, and you see all the junk that's in there. That's bad email marketing. So let's see what else. Then there's also social media. That's another new school online method. So you join social media groups like Facebook groups or online communities. I like to include WhatsApp groups as an online community and Telegram groups as an online community. Some people might argue with that, but the reason why I lump them together is because the dynamics of running a Facebook group and sometimes running a WhatsApp group, sometimes they have similar dynamics. And there's also building your own community, and this is often done through content marketing. That's by producing content. So theoretically, with the podcast that I'm putting out and the writing that I do on Naira Land and my own blog and things like that, eventually maybe I build a core community of people who like what I do. I have a newsletter, so the community is in touch, or wherever it is that I choose to host the community, whether on my website or on Facebook or whatever it is. But basically, it's a community that is unique to me, or rather built around my personality and my business interests. And those could be people who would possibly buy products or services or coaching or consulting from me later on in the future. And so that's how that works: building your own community. Then whether it's in a formal sense or in a loose sense, so if someone like me was doing it, a business consultant, it would be much more formal with a newsletter and a website and all that. But then you have people like what's Kim's sister? Is it Kylie? Yeah, Kylie Jenner. Yeah, the Kardashians. So Kylie Jenner, with her makeup products, her lip liner, is it lip liner or lip gloss, and all those things. Anyway, so she kind of has a community of people that follow her and things like that. But as far as I know, it's not a fixed hardcore community of people who subscribe to a newsletter and all that jazz. But people who follow her on her TikTok and her Instagram and always trying to see what is she doing, what is she wearing, what's the new thing. So for her, she has a community of people around her, but that's in a loose sense. And so that's how building your own community works, whether you're going to do it in a loose sense or whether you're going to do it in a very formal sense. Then, of course, new school online, there's also paid advertising, whether you run Google ads, Instagram ads, Facebook ads. I also like to throw newspaper advertisements in the mix, even though newspaper advertisements are old school. But you do have an online component these days when it comes to applying in the newspapers, because there are options for the center spread in the physical newspaper itself. But then, there are also options where you can advertise on the websites, because all the old school media outlets all have websites now. So you can advertise in the Vanguard newspaper, the physical newspaper, or you can advertise on the Vanguard newspaper, the website, and it's the same thing with Guardian or This Day or whatever is your newspaper of choice, or rather, whichever newspaper you think your potential customers are going to be watching, because it's all about the potential customer. So that's another way of new school and online advertising. Then there's also boosting your organic posts. That is when you pay to have your posts rise to the top of the timeline. So this is something that's available for Twitter, Instagram, those kinds of websites. I think maybe TikTok as well. So that's a summary of the kind of stuff that you can do for um, new school methods of lead generation or creating customers. So since it's quite a lot, we're not going to tackle all of them in this episode, or else we'll have another 30-minute episode here. and I'm trying to reduce the number of those that we do. So the next podcast episode, we're going to explore email and SEO, that is search engine optimization, and how we use that to create leads or to create customers. So thank you very much for listening to episode 565. Remember that if you're not convinced that lead generation and customer creation are kind of the same thing, in the spiritual sense, even if the technical definitions are different, remember, just go to the previous episode 564. You'll get some more details about that. If you want to know some more about simple and complex sales scenarios, use the search function in your podcast player. Searching within this podcast, and you'll be able to find more details about that. We've had okay, this is episode 565, so there's quite a lot that we've spoken about in the past. In fact, there are some people who believe that I've made podcast episodes about practically everything. That's not the case. I know it's a lot, but it's not everything. So whatever, if you want to know my opinion on anything, just use the search function in your podcast player and you'll be able to find corresponding episodes. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.